I am 22 and this incident happened a year and a half ago. I had just moved into my first apartment and was in the process of moving in. The door that led into my apartment locks itself automatically when closed, so I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my boyfriend. I returned to my apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail while using my phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under the bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch for it. I saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying still, with his back towards me and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face. Trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed through my head, I picked up my phone and said to my boyfriend, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just gonna take a shower and call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed, so I hastily walked in, quietly locked the door, turned the shower on, and jumped out my window. My apartment is on the first floor, and called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go across the street and see if anyone comes out the door to the apartment complex. This was during summer and it was still light out. I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and entry door. I called my boyfriend and he came to me just before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only moments later, 2 cops came out holding a thin and tired looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The policeman that had stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched through my house, I was a mess, shivering and crying, told me that the man stood outside my bathroom door with one of my kitchen knives waiting for me to come out. This man had somehow crept in my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under the bed. The man that was trying to hurt me turned out to be a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day. The police told me that what I did was truly amazing and rational. If I had screamed, this could have ended really badly for me. When I was a teenager, I was goth. Black hair, black clothes, black makeup, even had a pair of combat boots. My friends and I, in typical goth fashion, hung out at the local cemetery. We started going as a joke, but soon discovered we liked the peace we found there. But that all changed one night. My friend called to see if I wanted to hang out, and I did. None of our other friends were available. They were either working or recovering from partying the night before, so we were on our own. My friend picked me up and we drove up to the cemetery. We were hanging out, smoking cigarettes, and BSing about the latest issues she was having with her boyfriend, when we noticed at the top of the hill we were on, about 100 feet away, a bonfire had been lit. You have to understand that this cemetery is about a block off campus of a major university, and it's not uncommon for college students to go there to party. My friend and I sighed, knowing that we would have to get going soon. It was illegal to be in the cemetery after dark, and we knew the police would show up because some jerks had decided they needed a bonfire. We decided to finish our cigarettes and then take off. Just then, the most horrible stench came wafting down the hill from the direction of the bonfire. My friend gagged and covered her mouth. I groaned and said, "What the hell?" My friend shook her head, saying, "I don't know what they're doing. Let's just leave." We get in the car and one of us suggested, I honestly don't remember who, maybe we should just go up and see what they're doing. My stomach turned and a cold shiver went through my body. My friend must have had the same feeling because at the same time we both said, "No, we should leave." My friend turned the car on, switched on her headlights, put the car in reverse and looked over her shoulder before starting to back up. I was still looking up at the hill. A figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I could only see a silhouette, but I was sure whoever it was watching us. A feeling of terror hit me and I said, "Go, go, 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 go," getting louder and more panicked with each word. My friend looked back up to the hill for a second, and just as the figure took a step towards us, she slammed on the gas and peeled out, going in reverse down the hill. She rammed the gear shift into drive and we were out. We didn't say anything for a while until she said, "What the hell were they burning?" I shook my head. I don't know. She dropped me off at home and I went to bed. The next morning I woke up and went out to the kitchen. My mum was there drinking her morning coffee and I joined her. We talked about her job for a bit when she suddenly comes out with, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I shrug and say no, I had just gotten up. She tells me a woman she worked with was kidnapped from the parking garage. Oh my god, I say. Did they find her? Yes, but too late, she replies. Whoever took her had raped and murdered her. They found her this morning up in the cemetery. He had tried to dispose of her body in a bonfire. I froze, my brain going a mile a minute, the realization slowly creeping up. That's what that smell was. Needless to say, I never hung out at the cemetery at night again. I think back to our decision to leave instead of investigating the fire. That one decision could have changed everything. A few years ago, I worked at a small local pet store during college. I was one of 2 women who worked there, and we didn't generally work at nights together. This store kind of specializes in saltwater fish and reptiles in particular, so it wasn't too odd to have newbie reptile or aquarium people, or people looking to just learn something. About a year into me working there, this one man would come in and start asking questions about the bearded dragons in particular. I humoured him the first couple times he came in, and answered his questions for an hour and a half to 2 hours each time he came in. But then he just kept coming in, not buying anything, not looking at other animals, refused to talk to my other co-workers standing right next to me. He was definitely a dude with a creepy vibe, but after about the 3rd time this guy came in and questioned me about bearded dragon mating habits for an hour, we all started getting uncomfortable. He knew my schedule because we were such a small store. I would call my friends and tell them to come hang at the shop while he was there, because he was just so persistent about talking to me, and only about the bearded dragons with the occasional "do you have a boyfriend" or pickup line. I told him I wasn't interested each time, and told him I had a boyfriend, even though I didn't. At first, we were all pretty forgiving, chalking it up to social awkwardness, but it started getting scary when he'd come in, look for me, not find me, but he'd find my car. My car had significant damage at the time, and was decorated, so it was very obviously my car back then. And seeing that, he'd just hang out outside the shop. My boss/manager started telling me to hide out in our back employees only room when he'd come in. My friends were weirded out, and I was getting super uncomfortable around him. My co-workers were actively trying to curb his enthusiasm for coming in, but I ended up quitting that job. Around a month later, I'm watching the news with my dad, and oh boy were we in for a surprise. This same guy had been escorted off his ex's property in a local town by police. He came back to her house the same night and murdered her. When she didn't show up for work, her co-workers called for a welfare check. Police get there, he answers the door and tells them his name is Zeus. That most definitely was not his real name. He let the police in and they found her in her bathtub on a tarp. They also found bloody plates, silverware and pans in her sink. He had cooked and eaten parts of her heart, liver and brain. He's still waiting for trial in our state, and his interviews with news people questioning him while the police are escorting him to court are just bonkers. He tried to claim demonic possession at one point. It also came out he had previously murdered 2 people and been released from prison before moving to our area. Trust your instincts about the people you interact with. This took place about 10 years ago, when I was a freshman in college. This is the first time I've recounted this story, in full detail, to anyone. I attended college in a rural mountain area in the northeast, a small school tucked away in the rolling hills of the mountains, the type of place where the beauty and casual grace of nature is juxtaposed by the ugliness of humanity. The newspaper was ultra-conservative, and you couldn't go too deeply into the woods beyond a few trees without seeing some trace of meth activity. You know the type of place I mean. Anyway, one of my new friends from college discovered somehow an abandoned train trestle deep in the woods about 5 miles from campus, in no man's land basically. I don't remember how he found this place, because it was very much off the beaten path. The trestle crossed above a river which placidly flowed about 40 foot below. It was actually quite beautiful, and we began going there maybe 3 times a week, just chilling on the trestle, watching the water below and the open sky above. We'd drink 40s there, smoke a bowl there, bring girls there. We began jumping off the trestle into the water below and then climbing back up. It was just a very collegey thing to do, our chill spot basically. So one day, just needing to get away from the dorms and away from it all, I decided to go by myself to the trestle for a swim. It was about 7 PM, so I still had a good hour or so of dim sunlight, and I brought a flashlight for the walk home when it was sure to be dark. I made the trek through the pathways of the woods as I had done 100 times before, left my towel and flashlight on the trestle and jumped into the water. The water was about 10 to 15 feet deep, I'd say. It flowed almost gently, you might as well be swimming in a stagnant pool. However, about maybe 50 yards away from the trestle, the river narrows and the current picks up significantly. Then about 20 yards after that, there is maybe a 20-foot high waterfall that bubbles and splashes with extreme violence. We used to watch large objects go over and never come up again. So there I am, dimly bobbing my head in and out of the water, doing underwater flips, etc. When I pop my head out of the water, I happen to glance to the side of the river and see a man walking towards the water. The water is kind of impeding my view, so I don't see him fluidly walking towards the water. I more see him in different stages of being closer to the water, like flipping through a flip book. He's 15 feet away, 10 feet away, 5 feet away. I can barely give you a description. Maybe 6 feet tall, pale, skinny, black hair pulled back into a ponytail. What I do remember most about his appearance was the extremely empty look on his face and in his eyes, like he was doing something mundane, taking the trash out or raking leaves. I'm treading water, not knowing what to think, and I see that he is no longer beside the river. He has dove in and is swimming pin straight directly at me. So fast. So fast. I try to swim the opposite way, but within a minute I feel him grab my ankle and tug. I tried to scream, but water filled my mouth. While I'm underwater, he lets go and goes up for air, then grabs back on and pulls me again. It seems like he's done this before, and I never once see him after he jumped in the water. He's gradually pulling me to where the current picks up before the waterfall. I start to realize this, and just flip the fuck out, kicking, screaming, cursing, to no effect. Finally, I feel the current start to take me, and as I twist away towards the waterfall, I look back and see this fucking guy just casually swimming back to where he jumped in the water, not even looking at me. This is by far the scariest moment of my life as I approach the waterfall. Long story short, I go underwater for a long time, over a minute, the water above unrelentingly pushing me under. The only reason I survived was there was a large log that had gone over, and I grabbed it and leveraged it against the bottom to push me away from the crushing water. I survived, obviously, but then I had to trek the miles back to my dorm, in the dark, without my flashlight, every step of the way thinking he would come back to finish the job. The next year, a football player drowned going over that fall. The news said it was because there was an extreme current due to recent rainfall, but I've always wondered about that.
Would you run? Would you fight? Or would you be frozen in place, devoured by fear? Imagine yourself in these specific scenarios. How will your instincts make you act? Write your answer in the comment section below. Were you captivated by these stories? Consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell if your curiosity craves to hear more true, chilling reports recovered from the dark road. If you have a personal true story you'd like to share, please send it to the email address in the description.